Hello, Ghost of Hugh Nibley here. Let me ask you this. So, you have a problem with the Book of Abraham, as Joseph Smith claims that he translated some ancient writings believed to be of Abraham. Turns out, well, hey, surprise, surprise, we have the writings, and we have the translation, and Joseph Smith, without a doubt, is a fraud. Okay, ask yourself this. Do you even know what the Book of Abraham is about? Seriously. Without opening up the book, ask yourself this. Do you even know how many chapters the Book of Abraham even has? Is it 7? 8? 10? You don't even know, do you? It's 5 chapters. 5 chapters. That's right. I, Abraham. These words in the opening verse of Joseph Smith's Book of Abraham ring out like a trumpet blast, challenging all comers to a fair field, right? They state that the argument and set up the target. Is this an authentic autobiography of Abraham, the patriarch, or is it not? Let us not evade the issue by diminishing the proposition as too absurd to be taken seriously, right? If it is impossible, as it seems to modern scholars, let them please take a few minutes off to disabuse the public mind, explain it to the world, okay? To date, not one critic has laid a finger on the Book of Abraham. Huh? What? Yeah, that's correct. Not one critic has laid a finger on the Book of Abraham. Instead, they have all sought to discredit it by indirection, dwelling exclusively on the method and person by which they assume it was produced. To discredit Joseph Smith or anyone else in the eyes of an uninformed public is only too easy, requiring but not observance of a few established routines in the art of public relations. That gets us nowhere, honestly. Well, what about the Book of Abraham? In it, Joseph Smith has given us a straightforward and detailed narrative. Yeah, whose boldness, ingenuity, and originality should excite the interest and command the respect of anyone who's ever tried to write anything. Even as a work of fiction, it does not permit the reader to see it in the production of some poor fool who had no idea what he was doing, completely befuddled as to his sources, right? Trying to squeeze a story out of a handful of perfectly meaningless Egyptian doodles. We invite the critics to use the great advantage of their superior education and vast resource material to produce anything like it, okay? We'll even allow them full use of what they call Joseph Smith's modus operandi, which they have so brilliantly suggested as the explanation of how he really did it. And to assist them further, we offer at no extra charge another clue, a statement by the great E.A. Wallace Budge that is all the more revealing for its frank hostility to the prophet. He says, "The letterpress," Joseph Smith's explanation of the Book of Abraham, "is as idiotic as the pictures and is clearly based on the Bible and some Old Testament apocryphal histories." Well, as to those apocryphal sources, why have all his other critics overlooked them? Insisting that the whole thing is a pure fabrication and simply the product of Joseph Smith's imagination. As we've already observed, what could Joseph Smith have known about the Old Testament apocryphal histories, right? Budge was possibly the greatest authority of his day on Apocrypha. But That was because he spent his days mostly in the British Museum among the original manuscripts to which nobody else had access to. Okay? There were indeed a number of important apocrypha published in Budge's day, but in the 1830s, who has the access to the apocryphal Abraham materials even today? Right? Now, if Budge insists that Abraham's story in the Pearl of Great Price is clearly based on Old Testament apocryphal sources, that story deserves to be treated with some attention. What? The relatively uneducated Joseph Smith, using sources of which none of the experts, save only Budge, the most prodigiously learned and product-orientalist in the time, was aware. What a flattering accusation. How is the book supposed to have been produced? By direct revelation. A method unsearchable and imponderable, which renders research along that line fruitless and pointless. But that is not to say for a moment that the Book of Abraham is beyond criticism. Far from it. It can be tested as a diamond is tested, not by inquiring from whence it came, who found it, who owns it, how much was paid for it, where and when, who says it's genuine, and who says it's not, etc., but simply by subjecting it to the established and recognized jeweler's tests for diamonds. Or suppose, for example, that a newspaper reporter comes up with an eyewitness account of the sinking of the Titanic, right? And it later turns out that this witness never was even on the Titanic on her maiden voyage. Does it follow that the account is a fraud? It does follow that the man's claim to have been on the ship is fraudulent, but that's not the question, is it? His account may be accurate in the highest degree, based on careful research and scrupulous reporting by others. It may even have been compiled by someone else. Even less does it follow from his deception that there never was a Titanic, and that the whole story of the sinking was a newspaper hoax. The whole issue rests on the evidence taken from other sources, even as it must with the Book of Abraham. In short, it is the Book of Abraham that is on trial, not Joseph Smith. Not Joseph Smith as an Egyptologist, nor the claims and counterclaims to scholarly recognition by squabbling publicity seekers, nor the provenance and nature of Egyptian papyri, nor the competence or this or that person to read them. The resounding charge in the headlines was that, quote, the Book of Abraham is pure falsification. Joseph Smith is no longer with us. His reputation must rest in the bona fides of the book, not the other way around. Are you understanding? By his own insistence, he was merely an implement in bringing forth the record, not the creator. We have stubbornly passed the real evidence to investigate all matter of trivia. Exactly how did the prophet get the papyri? What difference does that make once we have them in our hands and know that they are genuine? The Kirtland papers contain clues to what was going on in Kirtland, but tell us absolutely nothing about Abraham. End of part 1.